Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel and the polytunnel. As you can see behind me here, we are surrounded by lots and lots of lovely plants. And I suspect if you're growing plants yourself this year, you will be as well. And at this time of year, particularly on a sunny day like today, the urge to get all your plants in the ground outside is huge. But in North Yorkshire here, we could still have frosts. And I tend not to plant out half-hardies until the end of May, and some people would even say around here that that's a little bit early. So in this episode of our YouTube, I thought we would cover whether to plant out or pot on and how I'm making those decisions at this time of year. So first big question is, what classifications are the plants that you're deciding what to do with? Now I suspect if you're growing cut flowers this year, you will have some of these. Not necessarily these varieties, but this classification of plants. These are hardy annual plants. And these guys are just that, they are hardy. So if a frost comes along at this time of year, the likelihood is these guys will still be alright if they're exposed to it. Because the frosts at this time of year are going to be quite light in nature. And these guys are really tough. So even at this size here, I would be quite happy to plant these straight into the field, because they've developed their true leaves, meaning that they've got leaves up here and not just their seed leaves, which is where it all started, those guys back down there. And they've got a good root system. So this size here with hardy annuals, I'd be quite happy to put straight in the field. But you are also likely to have some of these. Not necessarily as zinnia maybe, but asters, dahlias, anything that is half hardy, you're likely to have some of those on the go as well. Now these guys do not like a frost. A frost will kill these guys in their tracks. And after all the effort that you've put into nurturing them to this point, you don't want that to happen, because that would be really upsetting. So these guys are the ones that we're going to be potting on. And we're going to come back to these guys in a minute, but let's start off by looking at the hardy annuals and how I'm going to toughen those up ready to go outside. So I suspect you've heard the gardening term hardening off. Now what that basically means is you've got to toughen up your plants and get them ready for the change in what has been a very nurtured environment, either in your polytunnel, greenhouse or window ledge, where they haven't had extreme. Because in those environments they've been living a very charmed life, and I'm sure you've been nurturing them and looking after them perfectly. Haven't been exposed to the elements, so they haven't been exposed to huge fluctuations in temperature. Even though these polytunnels are unheated, what happens at this time of year is the sunlight comes in, they get warmed in the daytime, and then it retains that heat on an evening. So even if the temperature drops quite dramatically on a night time, there'll still be enough warmth in these tunnels that's been kept in from the sunshine during the day, that the temperatures don't tend to drop as much at this time of year. So the plants have been quite safe in this environment, certainly for the last few weeks. Also in these kind of environments, plants haven't been exposed to wind. Now wind will take down young seedlings just as quick as cold. If you take them from this very calm environment and put them straight out into a very exposed windy position and they get battered around, the leaves will get scorched, the stems will snap really easily, because these stems are really young, they haven't fully developed yet. So the likelihood is you'll get quite a lot of damage if you take them straight from this environment into a windy exposed site. So what I do is I start my hardening off process when the plants are actually in here. And this is where you all think that I'm really weird. I go around on a regular basis stroking my hand lightly over the top of all my seed trays once the plants have started to develop true leaves. Now whilst doing this, what I'm doing, you can see there, is slightly bending the stems over, which imitates what they'll have to go through when the wind starts to rock them. So it's just the very beginnings of toughening these plants up. And then any hardy annuals that I'm ready now to plant out, like these Dorcas here, which are fully rooted through the bottom of the tray, I get myself a little mushroom crate and I'd be popping the plants out the seed tray and placing them in the crate. And then I'll give these plants a good water and take the crate out and leave it in situ where I'm going to be planting them, and leave them there for a couple of days, making sure that I water them obviously so that they don't get dry, and then that'll just toughen them up. The crate will provide a little bit of protection, but there's full air circulation around these plants and it'll just acclimatise them ready to where they're going to be planted. And that, quite simply, is how I harden off my plants ready for planting. So alongside the hardy annuals at this time of year, you're also likely to have some of these. Things like zinnias, dahlias from seed, and asters. Now all these varieties are half hardy. That means that they can't stand the frost. These guys are the sun lovers. They absolutely love the sunshine midsummer, and they like being on the slightly drier side. If we put these outside now, we're running quite a high risk that they're very, very young plants. If frost comes, they're likely to die. So these are the guys that we want to be thinking about potting on. So if your plants are around about this size, I'm going to be potting my half-hardies into pots of 9 centimetres. And they'll grow on quite happily in these pots for a few weeks. And by then they'll have grown quite a lot and will have fully rooted into this pot. There'll be no risk of frost, they'll be good strong plants, and they'll do all the better for that extra process of potting on. And finally, you might have some of these. These are spring sown perennials. So we've got some Aquilegia there and some Eryngium there. So these are perennials, meaning they come back every year, and they're going to form quite large clumps over the next few years. I'm not worried about these guys going out in frost at all, but what I am concerned about is plant development and rate of plant development. So these guys are going to end up forming a nice big clump of a plant in the next couple of years. Now, to help them along the way, I'm going to be potting these plants into 1 litre plant pots. You can see the size difference there, and I'm going to be growing these on until they're fully rooted into this size pot, and it'll completely speed up how fast this plant will develop and how happy it'll be in the soil if you just jump at a stage from that to that, because it's a lot quicker for this little plant to root into that space than it is a big huge open environment. So if you're growing perennials, I recommend that you pot them up first into a 1 or 2 litre plant pot and grow them on to that size, and then plant them out into your growing space. And you'll see a marked difference doing it that way in terms of speed of plant development if you put on your perennials. So that's what I'm doing at this time of year. Depending on what plant it is, it gets dealt with in slightly different ways. So we've got our hardy annuals ready to go in the ground, our perennials are potted up into 1 litre pots, and we've got our half-hardies waiting in the wings in 9 centimetre pots. They've only got a couple more weeks and then we can get everything in the ground without a worry. But really, it's not a race to get things in the ground at this time of year, and you might end up crying into your compost if you get it wrong. So sometimes it's not worth the risk, and just bide your time a little bit more. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd love it if you like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye!